So our next speaker is Amy Corneli, who's going to talk about engaging North Carolina in PrEP, current activities of the Biomedical Prevention Scientific Working Group. And she's an associate professor of medicine in the Department of Population Health Sciences. And if you remember Dean Klopman's talk just now, she said we should be best friends with people from this department, so we welcome you to the podium.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me to speak today to talk to you about our Biomedical Prevention Scientific Working Group, otherwise known as SWIG. And I'd like to focus talking about what we're doing to engage North Carolina in PrEP-related activities, so pre-exposure prophylaxis. I'll talk about a variety of things today, but first I'll start with telling you who I am. That was one thing Kent asked me to do since I'm new to Duke, tell you a little bit about why I'm here and why I was asked to be part of the SWIG. Then I'll introduce the SWIG to you and tell you a little bit more about what we're doing and particularly the strategic partnerships that we have started. I'll tell you a little bit more about our upcoming events, other types of research that are going on in North Carolina regarding biomedical HIV prevention, and then related funding opportunities that are out there that we should all be excited about and want to apply for. Okay, so an introduction about who I am. So I started out as an AIDS peer educator in the late 1980s. So basically my whole adult life, I've been involved in HIV prevention in some aspect or another. My master's thesis, I was at Emory, and I developed nutritional guidance for homeless populations with HIV in the US. My doctoral dissertation was down the street with UNC. I worked on the BAN study, which some of you might know. Dr. Charlie Vanderhorst was head of that. It was a 6-arm study looking to prevent mother-to-child transmission from moms to babies in the Longway, Malawi, and then I was responsible for developing the informed consent process. Originally, I was a grad student for that. We did a huge formative study in order to inform the clinical trial, since it was a 6-arm studies with moms and babies and lots of complications. And during the formative research, we realized that people do not understand the community, potential participants really didn't understand clinical research. And so we decided that we needed to do more research on that. And so that became my dissertation, and we did more formative research. And eventually we did an RCT looking at different ways to explain the trial. And so we came up with this context-specific informed consent process using local analogies, using pictures from a local artist to see if that can help communicate the information better, and then that eventually did become the consent process for the trial. In 2001, all my work really became focused, or all my HIV work became focused in biomedical prevention trials, and I served as the behavioral scientist or the social scientist on those trials. Most recently, I was behavioral PI of FemPrep, which some of you may have heard of. It was a PrEP efficacy trials. Unfortunately, our trial had to close early, and what we learned from drug level testing is not enough participants took the study drug. And so I was tasked with going back to the community, conducting additional research to try to find out why participants didn't take the drug. And we learned a lot that way that has informed future HIV prevention trials, but specifically, and not surprising at all, the role of partners, communities, peers played such a huge role in trial behavior. And so now that's always now incorporated into future trials. I've also done some NIH-funded work. We did some qualitative and quantitative work looking at PrEP and risk compensation among women, trying to see how their sexual behaviors might change if they start using PrEP. Will they have more sexual partners because they feel protected, use condoms less often? So we use that information to inform guidelines, counseling guidelines for addressing risk compensation, which are now being used in Kenya as well as being adapted for use here in the United States by Planned Parenthood. And then also I had an NIH grant to look at reducing the length of consent forms in biomedical HIV research here in the US, looking at trials as well as implementation science. So I moved over here. I was at FHI for 10 years, Family Health International, and I moved over here in 2015. And now I'm collaborating with the PrEP Clinic with Mary McKellar over here, and we're generating new research, implementing new research to encourage populations here in North Carolina to seek HIV preventive care. So the Duke CFAR Biomedical Prevention SWIG. So this was advocated by the Duke CFAR Social and Behavioral Core here that Melissa and Kathy are right up front here. And it was initiated in 2007, so we're very, very new. But our overall purpose is to help grow Duke's portfolio in biomedical HIV prevention research by providing infrastructure, opportunities to inspire and help to develop new research ideas and collaboration in this area. There's 2 of us that lead this effort. I serve as a director, and it was mentioned I'm in the Department of Population Health Science. Sciences. I'm also faculty member at DCRI and as well as faculty associate at the Trent Center. And the Population Health Sciences Center, Health Sciences Department is a new department, as was mentioned. We just were created and became official in July of 2015. And it is already a source of new HIV researchers. So Mary and I just resubmitted a R34. And as soon as I got to the department, or right before I got to the department, I met someone else that really fit the need that we needed the expertise for our R34, but we didn't have it. And here was this other researcher who doesn't do HIV work, but had that expertise we needed. So she's joined our work. And so there's already other things set up that I'm branching out to people in my department to get them to know more about CFAR and the HIV work that is done at Duke. Co-director of the SWIG is Mary McKellar, right over here. Many of you already know her. She's an associate professor here in the Division of Infectious Diseases, and so she's the director of the Duke University PrEP Clinic that was initiated here in 2016 in January. So our year one goals is really to identify and bring together a multidisciplinary group of HIV researchers. And this is really, new strategic partnerships is another way of doing that. We want to bring in clinical scientists, we want to bring in social scientists, we want to bring in engineers and get us all at the same table and talk about how our ideas overlap and how our ideas can help each other get to where we want to go. And we also want to foster new interdisciplinary research among HIV investigators, non-HIV investigators at Duke, across Duke. And so this is where we focused our first couple months of effort once this week had started. So focusing on the first aim, we have built up our local SWIG. We have 20 members. We're divided into two groups. We have the core group, and that's investigators who are involved in biomedical HIV prevention research or have recently done it, want to keep working in it, want to keep talking to other people. We're planning on meeting on a monthly basis. We're going to talk about the NIH opportunities that are available. Investigators come and talk about, I have this idea, I need to brainstorm with people to kind of take it to the next level. We serve as that avenue to do that. And we also have an interest group, and that's a larger group of investigators that are interested and engaged in biomedical HIV prevention research, and they can assist the core group in reaching our goals. They don't really have the time or are able to really commit to monthly meetings, but they want to stay in the loop for what we're doing. Between these two groups, we have expertise in a whole host of areas. So a lot of clinical, a lot of behavioral social scientists, global health, but there's addiction, there's statistics, there's health inequality. So we really have a lot of different perspectives that are contributing to the ideas that we're trying to generate. And so for our second objective, really fostering on that inter-CFAR collaborations across universities, we have partnered with the newly created PrEP SWIG at the UNC CFAR. So they have also decided to create a new SWIG this year. Theirs is focusing specifically on PrEP. Ours is focusing on biomedical HIV prevention because we wanted to keep it broad and able to be ahead of the curve because there's a lot of new PrEP products that are being evaluated right now, although all our current activities are PrEP related because that is the one product that's out there that's proven. And the two main activities we're doing with UNCFAR is the joint North Carolina PrEP Summit that Mary mentioned earlier, and a joint CFAR Developmental Award that's going to come out next year, early next year. So I'll tell you a little bit about those two things. So the PrEP Summit is next Monday, all day, here at the JB Duke on campus. And it's targeted for researchers, community groups, healthcare providers, public health professionals, anyone who is engaged in PrEP work or want to be engaged in PrEP work. We welcome you to come, or we have welcomed everyone to come to this. We have had a huge response to this. We've actually had to close registration. We've had 118 people who have that are confirmed to come. We're on a wait list, so if anybody wants to come, please talk to me and I'll put you on the wait list in case somebody lets us know that they can't make it. But the objectives of the summit are to really talk about what is all going on in North Carolina, not just Duke, not just Durham, all across the state of North Carolina. And we have representation from a lot of different areas in the West and the East that are coming to the summit. We want to provide an opportunity for networking and really fostering new research collaborations. We want people to learn that there's other people out there that have similar ideas or complementary ideas and get them together and an opportunity to talk about how they could work together in the future. And then we want to identify local research priorities, and we're going to do that so we can inform that developmental award that will be announced next year. The organizing committee consists of folks from the UNC CFAR as well as from here, and we have 5 sponsors, so the Duke CFAR, UNC CFAR, Gilead and Vive, and also the Duke ATEC. And so I won't go over this in great detail, but just give you an overview of the agenda. First we're starting off, Vicki Mobley from the Department of Health and Human Services is going to come in and talk about just North Carolina in general. This is what our stats are right now for North Carolina. Here's where the populations that are becoming infected the most, here's where they are. So we really have a lay of the land when we start off. I'll give a brief update of the PrEP research. So what's the latest that's coming out of Durban or of Paris, from the International AIDS Conference, from CROI, so everyone knows what's really going on, what's being researched, what's in the pipeline, what's been recently done. And then we really wanted to focus on models of PrEP care and delivery. So there's a lot of research out there still continuing to find new PrEP products. There's one that's available that's FDA approved, but there's a lot more in the market, or a lot more being tested right now. But where a lot of the PrEP research is really PrEP implementation. How can we do a better job of getting people on PrEP and staying on PrEP? And to do that best, you partner with programs that are providing PrEP. And so we wanted the participants to have a full understanding of what type of models are out there to deliver PrEP. And so there's a community health center model, and we have 3 representatives, 2 from community health centers and 1 from a family practice that'll come in and talk about what their model looks like, but also to talk about the challenges they face and talk about what type of research they've been thinking about, where are the gaps, and so try to really start generating those discussions about what we can do to help them move forward. And then we'll also talk about university healthcare models. And so Mary will talk about the Duke PrEP Clinic. Dr. Christopher Hurt will talk about what UNC does to provide PrEP. Again, focusing on, here are their statistics, here's where we're struggling a little bit, here are some research we think could help what we're doing. And as we know, every community has a lot of community programs that are going on for HIV. So we have a lot of community representation at this summit. And so we have 2 local groups in Durham, and then a group from Charlotte that's going to come in and talk about the community programs that they do. And again, what challenges do they face? What type of research ideas do they want? What do they think needs to be done to help move them forward? We also wanted to highlight some of the PrEP research that's in North Carolina. So we'll have 3 investigators talk about their research, 2 from Duke and then 1 from North Carolina. And Dr. Hurt will talk a lot about what the HP10 researchers and other research networks are doing that are including North Carolina as sites, so a little bit broader. And then we have a few other activities that we're hoping will be of interest to participants. We're doing a speed science activity, which is like speed dating. And you'll meet most people. You're not going to meet all 118 because that'll be a lot. But participants will have a chance to meet a lot of people, talk about who they are, what their interests are, hopefully meet some people that have similar interests, exchange contact information, and set up a time to meet again. We'll have 4 breakout sessions: women in oral prep, IVDU in oral prep, MSM in oral prep, and then beyond oral prep. And for each of these breakout sessions, we have key leaders from UNC and Duke that are facilitating these sessions. Once again, focusing on what is going on right now in the field in North Carolina here, where are the gaps, what can we start thinking about in terms of research questions. And then we'll have an announcement about the Joint Developmental Award that both UNC Developmental Award Group and Duke are working on right now. And I won't go into too much detail about that because it will be announced then, and the developmental corps are working on that. But this is a really unique funding opportunity for Duke and UNC, for investigators at Duke, investigators at UNC to come together with some similar research idea, write a grant together and submit to this. And so we can build more partnerships between Duke and UNC. Next, I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the biomedical prevention research that's already taking place here in North Carolina. So this first grant, Bringing PrEP to Campus, Examining Strategies for PrEP Delivery to Historically Black Colleges and Universities. This is a Duke-led grant. All the investigators listed here are from Duke University. The study population is HBCU students, and specifically Black young MSM. And the purpose is to increase awareness of PrEP, increase acceptability of PrEP among students at historically Black colleges and universities, and then to access PrEP uptake at student health centers at these campuses. And it's also to develop a smartphone intervention designed to improve PrEP adherence, specifically for Black young MSM. And this was a CFAR Supplemental Award. Another example of research here in North Carolina, one of the same investigators of the previous one is to look at a phase one, or is to conduct a phase one trial of a smartphone-based intervention to enhance PrEP adherence. Again, all Duke investigators. The study population is young MSM, and they call it a proof of concept trial where they're looking at the feasibility, acceptability of using this app, how does it enhance adherence, and what are the type of adherence barriers. And they use the camera as part of the phone to actually help to measure adherence. And so this was funded internally here at Duke. This is a grant that we also just got recently funded. It's a CFAR Supplemental Award, and the title of it is Gathering Evidence for Integrating PrEP into Syringe Services Programs. The investigators are Duke, but what we also did is took advantage of strategic partnerships, and we reached out to, this is Mary McKellar's grant, we reached out to Bill Zuhl of RTI, who's actually part of the UNC CFAR, Robert Childs with the North Carolina Harm Reduction Council, who leads the efforts in syringe programs in North Carolina. And we're working in Wilmington, North Carolina, which is sadly one of the capitals of the opioid epidemic. And so the purpose of this grant is threefold. First, we want to estimate HIV prevalence among people who inject drugs at syringe service programs. Then we want to identify risk behaviors, HIV risk behaviors among this population, and then gather data from key stakeholders on whether and how to integrate a PrEP program for this population into syringe service programs. North Carolina is only one of 2 states that legally allows individuals to exchange syringes legally, and we want to really be able to see, is this a place where we can capture people and get them linked to HIV care? And there's other Duke-led biomedical prevention activities in North Carolina. This one right here is also by Duke folks. It's a 3-prong approach to implementing PrEP in our community, and the purpose is to implement and promote PrEP, the PrEP clinic at Duke, educate PCPs at Duke to prescribe PrEP, and build relationships in the with community partners to raise awareness about PrEP in the greater community area, Durham area. There's been a lot of effort here. There's been a lot of community building, which has really been fruitful for getting clients into the clinic. There's been surveys in terms of evaluating different aspects of this program. There's been a lot of training for PCPs over the last year, and this was funded by the Duke Institute of Health Innovation. And then the last one I wanted to mention is not a North Carolina, there's not a North Carolina site, but it's a great example of partnerships between North Carolina, or UNC, and Duke. And this is called P3, Prepared, Protected, and Empowered, Promoting PrEP Adherence Through Social Networking Gamification Adherence Support App. So the investigators it's an MPI approach, so one from UNC, one from Duke, and the broad idea is to develop and evaluate through a 3-arm RCT an app-based intervention to increase PrEP adherence. And so the study population is young MSM and also young transgender women who have sex with men. And so they're also including adolescents going down to 16. And so the funder is NIH. And I wanted to end with talking about current funding opportunities. Look at this list. This is a really long list, that we can actually apply for these things. PrEP is mentioned in the first 4 of these. And many of them are open till 2020, so there's 3 times a year up until maybe May 2020, I can't remember what month, that we can apply for these. One that just got released, the last one on the list, is open to 2021. That one doesn't list PrEP as PrEP is listed, but it's not a typical PrEP application. But there's a lot of pre-work we could do with this one in order to engage transgender populations into research. But all the other ones, there's any other PrEP idea that we have that can fit in here. And we really hope that through the SWIG, we'll be able to encourage and get us at Duke, as well as in North Carolina, to be able to get some of these funds here to Duke and to North Carolina and really take advantage of these opportunities. And that's all.
That was fantastic. I'm here looking at some of the comments of the External Advisory Committee. They were very enthusiastic about this new scientific working group. It said that the challenge is finding a specific niche for this, and it sounds like you're well on the way to it.
Right. Not there yet, but we hopefully are going to get there. Right, and doing it very collaboratively and getting all the players in the room to try to do that, and we think hopefully that'll be fruitful.
This will be a great feather in our cap for the competitor.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah. Great, thank you.
I have one question for you. So what studies are done on long-term use of PrEP? So how long would be the longest somebody's been using PrEP for prevention? And potential issues to consider over time?
I'll have Mary answer that since it's clinical. I could do it, but she would do it much better and it's clinical.
I've had someone on prep since 2012, but, actually, the norm is for shorter duration. Prep's a little different. They don't have to be on prep for life. It's not like antiretrovirals for HIV treatment. So it's been a little bit of a challenge for us to how to look at patients who don't come back into clinic, whether they really lost care or maybe they're no longer at risk and they've chosen not to go on prep. So it's been a little bit new territory for us. But in terms of length of prep where people have been on it, I mean, the earliest is 2012 when it was approved, and people are doing quite well.
And so one thing we're doing as social scientists is looking at those reasons why people may go on and off prep. There's this term called seasons of prep where people believe that they're not at risk anymore, so they're going to go off it for a little while, but then their risk increase and they go back on it a little while, and that's fine as long as you're evaluating your risk well. And we actually just submitted a grant looking at that in Kenya, trying to be able to provide better guidance for providers and helping people when they want to go off, helping them better evaluate their risk and knowing when it is safe to go off and then really when you should go back on.